Paramount Studios, Stage 9, October 2nd, 1961. Wednesday morning, 9:43. 47 crew members stand motionless. The lighting director's hand hovers over a dimmer switch. The camera operator's eye stays pressed to the viewfinder. The script supervisor's pen freezes mid-note. Even Blake Edwards, the director, goes completely still. George Peppard has just delivered his line. Perfectly. Every word crisp, every pause calculated, every technical element flawless. He stands in the exact spot marked on the floor, his body positioned precisely as blocked, his voice carrying the intellectual distance Paul Varjak needs at this moment in his character arc. Across from him, 3 feet away, Audrey Hepburn waits. Her eyes are open, vulnerable, offering everything Holly Golightly has. The desperate hope that maybe this man sees her, really sees her, not as a puzzle to solve, but as a person to love. Her performance is radiant, raw, the kind of work that makes experienced crew members stop breathing just to watch. She waits for George to respond. Not just with his next line, but with something human. Some flicker of connection, some recognition that they are building this moment together. George maintains his careful distance. This is correct, he believes. Paul is not ready for vulnerability yet. This is midpoint of the arc. The restraint must be protected. This is what 7 years at the actor's studio taught him. 3 seconds pass. The silence on set becomes uncomfortable. Audrey's eyes show the smallest question. Is he going to give me anything? The crew shifts weight from foot to foot. This scene should feel like 2 people discovering each other. Instead, it feels like one person performing alone, while the other analyzes from distance. Blake Edwards exhales slowly. Cut. His voice is quiet, controlled. That was technically perfect, George. Absolutely perfect. Nobody moves. The crew knows that tone. They have heard it every day for 6 weeks. Technical perfection that somehow misses the point entirely. Can we try one more? Blake continues carefully. Same blocking, same everything. But this time, let yourself respond to what Audrey is giving you. Just a little. See what happens. George's jaw tightens slightly. Not with anger. He is too professional for that. But with the certainty of someone who knows he is right. Blake, I understand what you are asking, but Paul is not emotionally available yet. We are only at... I know where we are in the arc. Blake's voice is firmer now. Trust me on this one. Just try it. The crew members glance at each other. Here we go again. The same discussion they have witnessed in every scene for 6 weeks. Director asking for connection. Actor protecting his arc. Both men convinced they are serving the film. Both men unable to see what the crew sees clearly. That one person is trying to build a duet, while the other is performing a solo. Nobody knows yet that this moment, repeated in scene after scene, day after day, for 6 weeks of production, will become the invisible story behind one of Hollywood's most romantic films. That the chemistry audiences will believe for 60 years was actually created by one actor working alone. That the man delivering technically perfect performances will spend 30 years wondering why his career took a different path than everyone predicted. In October 1961, George Peppard believes he is creating the performance of his life. He is doing everything his training taught him. He is protecting his character, serving his arc, maintaining artistic integrity. What he does not know, what he will not understand for 3 decades, is that he is also creating the perfect cautionary tale about the difference between being right about technique and being right for the story. 6 months earlier, June 12, 1961, New York City. Paramount Studios press room. Flashbulbs pop as George Peppard and Audrey Hepburn stand together for photographers. The announcement has just been made. They will star in Breakfast at Tiffany's. The trade papers call it the romantic pairing of the year. The studio press release promises magic. George is 32 years old. Born October 1st, 1928, in Detroit. His father was a building contractor who lost everything in the Depression. His mother was a voice teacher. He grew up understanding scarcity, understanding that nothing comes without fighting for it. After the Marines and an engineering degree at Carnegie Mellon, he discovered acting. Everything changed. The Actors Studio in New York. 7 years with Lee Strasberg learning the method, emotional memory, psychological analysis, internal character work. His training taught him that great acting comes from deep understanding, that an actor must know every motivation, every psychological truth, every internal reason for external behavior. By 1961, he has done television work, Broadway, films. Critics notice him, call him intense, committed. He is ready for the role that will make him a star. Paul Varjak in Breakfast at Tiffany's, the struggling writer, the kept man, the romantic lead opposite Hollywood's most beloved actress. George approaches Paul Varjak the way his training taught him, reads Truman Capote's novella repeatedly, builds a complete psychological profile. Paul is a talented writer who compromised his integrity by accepting financial support from an older woman. A man caught between comfort and authenticity. Someone who observes life from distance rather than participating fully. In his preparation notebooks, George writes everything about Paul. His childhood in a small, Midwestern town. His complicated relationship with a demanding father. His early success as a writer, followed by creative block. The shame of accepting financial support. The defense mechanisms that keep him emotionally distant. The fear underneath his sophisticated exterior. This is the method in practice. Building a character from the inside out. Creating psychological reality so complete that every choice flows from authentic, internal truth. George has done this work meticulously. This is what 7 years at the Actors Studio prepared him to do. George understands Paul's arc clearly. The character begins emotionally distant, analytical, protected. Only at the climax does he break through his armor and risk vulnerability. That journey from restraint to openness is what the audience must see. If he gives too much emotion early, the climax has nowhere to build. The performance must be carefully calibrated, restrained in the beginning, explosive at the end. This is what the method taught him. Protect the character arc. Serve the complete journey. Never give everything away too soon. What George does not know, what his training never taught him, is that romantic films require something beyond individual character work. They require two actors creating something together, building chemistry through mutual responsiveness, generating connection through collaborative give and take. His method training taught him to work internally, alone. But romantic film acting is different. It requires meeting your scene partner halfway, responding to what they offer, creating heat that neither actor could generate alone. The Actors Studio emphasized internal work, emotional memory, psychological analysis, character biography. These tools create dimensional performances. They generate authentic feeling. They produce work grounded in truth. All of this is valuable. All of this creates good performances. But the method, as George learned it, focused on individual actor work. On building your character in isolation, then bringing that character to set fully formed. This works beautifully for certain roles. Character studies, solo performances, dramatic pieces where internal psychological reality is paramount. Romantic comedies require something else. They require two actors building something together in real time, responding to each other, creating chemistry through mutual availability. George will not understand this for 30 years. October 1961. 6 weeks into production, the Tiffany's scene. Holly and Paul walking through the jewelry store, looking at rings they cannot afford, sharing a moment suggesting maybe neither has to be alone anymore. George plays the scene the way his training taught him. Paul is still in observation mode, still analyzing, maintaining emotional distance. This is correct for the character arc. If Paul shows vulnerability now, the rain scene loses impact. Blake Edwards asks if George can try a version with more openness, where the audience sees Paul's defenses beginning to lower. George explains his reasoning. The character is not ready for vulnerability yet. This is midpoint of the arc. If he plays emotion now, he has nowhere to go in the climax. He is protecting the journey. Edwards listens, suggests they shoot 2 versions, one George's way, one with more availability. They will see what works in editing. This becomes the pattern. George plays scenes the way his character analysis dictates. Edwards asks for alternatives. They shoot multiple versions. Production falls behind schedule. The editor will construct the performance later. George believes he is doing the right thing, protecting character integrity, serving the complete arc, maintaining artistic standards. This is what his training taught him. What he does not see is that his scene partner, Audrey Hepburn, is working from a completely different philosophy. Her training taught her that film acting is collaborative, that chemistry requires both actors in the same emotional register, that you must give your partner something to work with. She adjusts to whatever George offers. When he plays restraint, she matches it. When he shows small openings, she responds with everything. She is creating chemistry essentially alone, generating emotional reciprocity without receiving it, building the romance the film needs despite working with minimal return. George does not understand this is happening. From his perspective, he is doing excellent work, protecting his character, maintaining his arc, creating a performance grounded in psychological truth. November 15th, 1961. The rain scene, the emotional climax, Paul chasing Holly through the rain, climbing into the taxi, declaring love. Everything has been building to this moment. Blake Edwards gathers both actors. This is the moment where everything must work, where the audience must believe completely in Paul's transformation, in his capacity for vulnerability, in his love for Holly. George has prepared carefully. This is where Paul breaks through years of emotional armor, where he risks everything, where the restraint he has maintained for 90 minutes finally shatters. He delivers the speech about love and belonging with everything he has been holding back. The performance feels powerful to him, a genuine breakthrough earned through careful construction, through 90 minutes of withholding that makes this release meaningful. Blake shoots it multiple times. Each take, George commits fully. Each take feels like the culmination of weeks of careful character work. When they wrap the scene, George feels satisfied. He did what the method taught him. He protected the arc, served the journey, delivered the emotional climax with authenticity. What he does not realize is that Audrey has been creating the chemistry for both of them, that his restraint throughout the film forced her to generate all the romantic heat alone, that his careful withholding, meant to protect the arc, actually created distance that she had to bridge through extraordinary effort. From George's perspective, he did good work. From the crew's perspective, Audrey did miraculous work. Production wraps November 29th, 1961. There is a party, champagne, speeches. George feels good about his work, believes he created a performance grounded in truth, built through rigorous internal analysis, delivered with artistic integrity. He and Audrey shake hands professionally, wish each other well, move on to next projects. No drama, no conflict, Just two professionals finishing a job. January 1962. The rough cut screening. George watches himself as Paul Varjak for the first time. He looks right, sounds right, says every line correctly. The performance is technically precise, but something is missing. The chemistry he expected to see on screen is not quite there. Paul seems distant, analytical, observing the story rather than participating in it. The romance works, but only because Audrey is so luminous, so emotionally available, so extraordinarily talented that she creates the illusion of reciprocal feeling even when George is giving her minimal return. George notices this, but does not fully understand it. Perhaps the editing needs work. Perhaps different takes could be used. Perhaps it will play better with the score and final sound mix. Breakfast at Tiffany's premieres, October 1961. Critics gather at the premiere screening. Studio executives sit in the front rows. The lights dim. The film begins. Henry Mancini's Moon River fills the theater. On screen, magic happens. Audrey Hepburn as Holly Golightly is luminous, vulnerable, achingly human. She makes you believe in this woman who pretends not to care but cares desperately, who runs from love while aching for it, who seeks safety in all the wrong places until she finds it in one person's eyes. George Peppard as Paul Varjak looks perfect, handsome, brooding, the struggling artist wrestling with his compromises. They walk through Tiffany's together, his hand almost touching her back. They share scenes in her apartment, the camera capturing longing glances. They search for the cat in the rain, bodies close, hearts supposedly closer. To the audience watching, it looks like romance. Like chemistry, like two people falling in love despite themselves. The camera captures Audrey's radiant smile when Paul surprises her. George's intense gaze when he watches her. Their bodies close together in the taxi. Their hands nearly touching over breakfast on the fire escape. The costumes are perfect. Edith Head's little black dress becomes instantly iconic. The lighting is soft, romantic, exactly right for every moment. Mancini's score swells at precisely the moments designed to make hearts flutter. Everything visible on screen suggests deep connection between two people discovering they need each other. The audience believes it completely. Why would they not? Everything they can see tells them this is romance. This is chemistry. This is love developing between two beautifully matched people. But behind that screen, on the set where this romance was created over 6 weeks in late 1961, the reality was different. Not dramatically different. There were no fights, no walkouts, no tabloid scandals. Just two professionals working from different philosophies, creating different kinds of performances, never quite finding the rhythm that makes romantic scenes catch fire naturally. One actor believed that restraint created depth, that withholding emotion until the perfect moment served the character arc. That intellectual control demonstrated serious artistry. The other actor understood that romantic films require openness, that chemistry cannot be generated alone, that you must give your scene partner something to respond to, something to build with, something to create together. Both actors were talented. Both were trained. Both were committed to excellence, but they were working from incompatible philosophies, and only one of them adapted. The film becomes a cultural phenomenon. Not immediately. It takes months, then years, but steadily, irreversibly. The little black dress becomes iconic. Moon River becomes one of the most recognized songs in cinema. Holly Golightly enters permanent cultural consciousness. Audrey Hepburn's performance is studied, celebrated, immortalized. George's performance receives respectful acknowledgement. He did his job. He looked right. He said his lines well, but he is not what people remember. He is not what film students analyze. He is present in every scene, but somehow not quite there. Critics praise Audrey's work as career-defining. George receives polite notices, adequate, serviceable. The kind of reviews that do not hurt careers, but do not build them either. And slowly, quietly, George's film trajectory changes. Not dramatically. Not with any single decisive moment. Just a gradual shift from the path everyone predicted to a different path entirely. The Carpetbaggers comes in 1964. Good work, solid box office, but not the star-making follow-up it should have been. The Blue Max in 1966. Again, good work, but something is missing. The offers keep coming, but they change quality. Fewer prestige projects, more action films. By the early 1970s, George is doing more television than film. Banachek from 1972 to 1974. A detective show where he plays a clever insurance investigator. Well received. Good ratings. Decent money. But television, not cinema. A different kind of stardom than the one promised by playing opposite Audrey Hepburn. Then in 1983, TheATeam. Hannibal Smith, the cigar-chomping leader of a commando team helping people who have nowhere else to turn. The show becomes a phenomenon. 15 million viewers every Tuesday night. George becomes wealthy, famous, recognized everywhere. Children love the show. Adults remember it fondly. His catchphrase enters popular culture. I love it when a plan comes together. TheATeam runs until 1987. 4 years of steady work, good money, genuine fame. More people recognize George from TheATeam than from all his film work combined. He becomes an icon, just not the kind of icon he imagined in 1961 when he stood beside Audrey Hepburn at that press conference. This is success. Real, measurable, bankable success. George has financial security. He has recognition. He has work that millions of people enjoy. By any objective standard, he has built an impressive career. But it is not what those press releases promised when Paramount announced that George Peppard would star opposite Audrey Hepburn in what would become one of the most romantic films in cinema history. It is not the trajectory of a major film star. It is something else. Successful, yes, but different from what seemed inevitable in 1961. And through all these years, George wonders why. What changed the path? He has theories, changing tastes, studio politics, luck. All partially true, but something else lingers. Something about Breakfast at Tiffany's that worked on screen but did not work the way it should have. Something about his performance that was correct in every technical detail, but wrong in some fundamental way he cannot quite identify. For nearly 30 years, this remains unexamined. Just a vague wondering. Then, 1990. George is 61 years old. A film magazine journalist interviews him about his early career, his training at the actor's studio, his approach to acting. The journalist asks what lessons he learned from those early films. George is quiet for a long moment. Something shifts in him, a willingness to examine what he has avoided examining, a readiness to understand what happened. When you are young and trained in method acting, he says carefully, you believe emotional restraint equals depth. You believe withholding creates mystery. You believe intellectual control demonstrates sophistication. The journalist waits. I believed that when I made Breakfast at Tiffany's, George continues. I believed my job was to protect Paul Varjak's emotional arc, to maintain distance until the climax, to withhold vulnerability until the moment it would have maximum impact. Was that wrong? It was not wrong in theory. The method teaches you to serve the character's complete journey. That is valid. But what I did not understand, what my training never addressed, is that romantic films require something different. require generosity toward your scene partner, require giving them something to work with, something they can respond to, something you can build together. He pauses, choosing words carefully. Audrey Hepburn was creating one kind of performance, emotional, open, collaborative, responsive. She was building a duet. I was creating another kind of performance, internal, analytical, self-contained, carefully calibrated. I was building a solo. Both approaches can produce good work in the right context. But in a romantic film, those approaches must align, must serve each other, must create something together that neither could create alone. Do you think that hurt the film? I think it made Audrey's job much harder than it should have been. She had to create chemistry for both of us, had to generate emotional reciprocity with minimal return, had to act for two people. He looks directly at the journalist. She succeeded because she was that talented, that adaptable, that professional. But I should not have required her to do that alone. Do you regret it? George is quiet again. I regret not understanding then what I understand now. That collaboration is not compromise. That meeting your scene partner halfway is not weakness. That generosity in performance is not sentimentality. I was 32 years old and thought I understood acting. I understood method. I did not understand connection. That lesson took me 3 decades to learn. This interview circulates quietly through Hollywood. Some actors read it and adjust their approach. Some do not. In 1993, Audrey Hepburn dies at 63. George does not attend the memorial service. His health is failing, but he sends flowers and a private letter to her family. Portions of that letter later become public. Working with Audrey taught me that great acting is not about technique alone. It is about understanding that your performance exists in relationship to others. That the best work happens not when you protect yourself, but when you offer yourself. I was too young and too convinced of my training to understand this in 1961. By the time I understood, we had both moved on. I wish I could tell her what her professionalism taught me. That watching her work showed me what true artistry looks like. George Peppard dies May 8, 1994, age 65, from lung cancer. His obituaries mention TheATeam most prominently. But they also mention breakfast at Tiffany's. Always. Because that film never stops being relevant. 60 years later, audiences still watch Breakfast at Tiffany's. Still fall in love with Holly Golightly. Still believe in her romance with Paul Varjak. They see chemistry. They see connection. What they do not see is that one actor created that chemistry for both of them. That the connection they perceive required extraordinary effort from one performer while the other maintained careful distance. This is the invisible work of great film acting. The chemistry that looks spontaneous but requires calculation. The romance that appears mutual but sometimes flows from one source. George Peppard gave a technically proficient performance in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Audrey Hepburn gave a transformative one, not because she was more talented. Both were skilled, trained, committed, but because she understood something he did not understand until it was too late. That in romantic films, protecting your individual arc matters less than building something together. That withholding for impact matters less than offering for connection. That being right about technique matters less than being generous with your scene partner. George learned this lesson just 30 years after he needed it. That is not a story about failure. That is a story about the long journey of artistic growth. About the difference between knowing and understanding. About how the best lessons often come too late to change what already happened, but just in time to teach what comes next. Sometimes the plan does not come together the way you expected. Sometimes you spend 30 years wondering why. Sometimes you finally understand, and by then, it is too late to do anything except tell the truth about what you learned. George Peppard told that truth in 1990. 4 years before his death, 30 years after he made choices that seemed right at the time, but changed the trajectory of his career in ways he could not have predicted. He told the truth, and that might be the most important performance of all.